get into that. So my first guest I definitely want to welcome is Steve Renzi, who's the chef owner of Cassarinos up on Federal Hill. Steve, come on in, join me, because you got something that smells absolutely amazing over there. Holy cow. Literally, this is pork, not cow, but look at that. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining me. What is this?
So this is pork ossobuco, braised pork shank in a tomato and wine demi-glaze, and a spinach and cheese risotto.
All right, so I know you can't smell this, but this is absolutely amazing. And last week everybody was making fun of me because I'm such a duck fan. This is my second favorite. I'm an ossobuco fan to no end. So it's got spinach and cheese risotto, you said?
Spinach and cheese risotto, and it's a veal-based demi-glaze, a little bit of celery, carrot, and onion. Something we put a lot of time and effort into. It takes us about 3 to 4 hours preparation before it's ready for dinner service. So
this is why you want to go down to Cassarinos, because they'll take the 3 to 4 hours that we don't have to go make a dish like this. So I'm going to pour you some wine because we definitely got a toast. But is this something that's just now going on the menu?
It just went on the menu about 3 to 4 weeks ago. Ossobuco is something we've always featured as a special, and it's been such a big hit with our clientele that we finally decided to go ahead and put it on the menu as a regular special. So it's available nightly.
God bless your clientele for liking dishes like this,
yes,
because I'd like to see
absolutely.
it. So we're trying 2 wines. I got 2 wines from my recent shopping trip I just did to Chris Cassarinos. Both of these are amazing because they're under $10 for me, so that was great. So a Rosso, which I know you said you're not prejudiced like me. You can drink red or white. So I got a Rosso and a Pinot Grigio, but we're going to start with a Rosso.
There you go. Solid.
Cheers. Thank you again for joining me. So some questions that go around the traditional experience, and being that I have all of you guys from Federal Hill, and in all fairness, I must say I represent the Federal Commerce Association, so I'm very fond of Federal Hill. How long have you been up on Federal Hill?
I have been up on Federal Hill as a owner for 11 years. And
But Cassarinos is much older.
Cassarinos is much older. Cassarinos, as the name, has been there since 1988.
Wow.
And I've been part of Cassarinos for a total of 20 years.
You're kidding. So you were, oh, that's right. So you were there when Rich
I was
the
there
original,
with
right?
Rich Cassarino, who
Yep.
started the restaurant back in '88, and I joined him 20 years ago. And my business partner, Tyler Barron, and I were both employees for Richard. We worked for him again for about 9 years, and we took the restaurant over for him, and we've been running it for the past 11 years.
So going with tradition, you two literally started there as employees and now become your own success story, keeping the tradition of Cassarinos alive, really.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that space, if you haven't been to Cassarinos, again, you're missing out. But Cassarinos has 3 floors, and I'm going to let Steve do his thing of being able to describe it. But it's an amazing dining experience and another longtime tradition from the Hill. Now, being that you're a chef owner, and there aren't a lot of those left overall, right. If you look at the percentage of restaurants that we have,
sure.
That's got to give you the ability to really bring these traditions and keep it a traditional Italian restaurant, right? So you've got your creative input that goes on the menu.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to, that as long as I've owned the restaurant, a lot of the staff stayed on from day one with us.
Fantastic.
Especially in the kitchen. So they've known those past traditions, and it's very easy for me to kind of turn things over to them for whatever reason I'm not there. But they also understand the legacy of Cassarinos.
Right.
And we've kept a lot of the menu items. Some of them are the same, the traditional Italian-American items. But, as times have changed, we've tried to make some changes as well. A lot of farm to table we try and do now.
So locally sourced items.
We're trying to source local, even if it's in the front of the house with our spirits and beers and whatnot. But yeah, the guys in the kitchen, we work well together as a team. I have a lot of my own crazy ideas that I
every
try,
chef does.
That I try and teach them, but I also encourage them. There's a lot of reading and research and traveling that goes into trying to bring some new things to the menu.
Absolutely, and having those guys that you just mentioned in the kitchen together, longtime staff, that lends to the experience. I mean, because like you said, they've got that familiarity that's already there. They can continue on these traditions and such. So, with the creativeness that you have and working with them, is the menu, how often do you guys change the menu over there? I mean,
the menu itself is pretty standard. It doesn't change drastically.
Because you're keeping that tradition.
Because we keep that tradition of what made Cassarinos successful and what continues to make us successful. A lot of that classic comfort food,
right.
Parmesans and Marsalas and Saltimbocas.
And then,
and then we try and mix it up. We're very creative when it comes to our nightly specials. Typically, if we run a special today, you're not going to see it again. A lot of times we do a lot.
So happy this is going on the menu.
We do a lot of one-off things. Whatever right. is available at the farm today, we try and buy and use and come up with a couple dishes with it, and then tomorrow or next week it changes.
So from the perspective of learning the traditions, both you and Tyler, right? Like you said, grew up under Rich, kind of in the restaurant there. Did you study in the restaurant itself, or did you go to culinary school, or how did you?
I attended Johnson & Wales.
All right, another Johnson & Wales grad, see?
I did Johnson & Wales. I did the associates program, and while I was attending Johnson & Wales, I got a part-time job at Cassarinos.
So you're going to double degree.
Yeah.
One that was paying you, one that you paid for.
No, absolutely.
Right, that's awesome. So, I mean, I'm very familiar with Cassarinos, but I want to make sure that people are, as an overall whole, visiting Federal Hill, because it's a tradition in and of itself to go visit Federal Hill. And it is, the Hill has become much more diverse, but it carries on a lot of that authenticity. A lot of the traditional experiences are still there, whether you're, going to the bakeries or the shops or the restaurants themselves. But give people an overview, like kind of let us know what you expect when you walk into Cassarinos.
So when you walk into Cassarinos, I feel like it's still that Italian grandmother's home. The dining room might be a little modern, but it's very welcoming.
Right.
When you, as early as valeting your car, you're greeted by the valet parker with, "Good evening, good afternoon, welcome to Cassarinos."
Perfect.
You walk through the front door, someone's always at the door to greet you, and from the time you get to that front door to the time you sit down, you're probably greeted by 2 or 3 other
Right.
people saying hello. And that's what I've always asked my employees to, or try and instill in them, is
Right.
make people feel welcome. This is our home. This is something we work very hard to do.
And that's part of the tradition of
and
the
we want
Italian
people
experience.
to enjoy themselves, and that's the Italian experience. Welcoming, homey, comfort. I don't want them to feel uptight, or I don't want the food to be pretentious. I want to keep the food simple, basic ingredients, where whether you're a young adult or an older person, when you come to Cassarinos, you feel comfortable,
Right.
and you're not intimidated by the menu.
So that's kind of a good point, not being intimidated by the menu. So the tradition, and I'm going to probably say this to each of the guests today, of coming up to Federal Hill and knowing it to be that Little Italy, you got a clientele that spans a lot of generations, right? I mean, you've got people that have been coming there probably since the place opened.
Sure.
I mean, and I've been in there and I've seen college students sitting
Sure.
down eating. So do you find that people are becoming more familiar or taking a chance, or they're familiar because of the basics, like you're saying?
I think they're familiar because of the basics, but over time, as you said, we've seen generations come through the restaurant.
Right.
We have guests that sit down and say, "We had our first date here, and now we're celebrating
That's
our
awesome.
10th wedding anniversary."
That's amazing. Yeah.
We've done first communions. Now we're seeing these kids go to their college graduations.
It's crazy.
So I mean, we're very fortunate that we have a very loyal following, and a very a local fan base where they come back, and I think by incorporating these other specials that we try and do,
Right.
and we try and do different events throughout the year, beer dinners, wine dinners,
yeah.
that keep them invigorated in the Cassarino experience.
Well, and that's a good point on like you said, in running the additions to the menu, the specials, is that people come looking forward to something, like what is he going to have tonight, that kind of thing. So I think that, from the perspective I've seen up there, and you obviously would know better than I, is that a lot of people that are coming to Rhode Island for the first time, that's the first stop, is they're coming to Federal Hill, especially if they're staying in Providence,
Absolutely,
obviously.
sure.
So there's a lot of business of people that I see that are coming up that discover the traditions of Rhode Island that we sometimes take for granted here, especially from the Italian side of food. We have amazing Italian restaurants. So do you see that there's people coming in that you get all this feedback and stuff because they haven't tried this or experimented with it because they're visiting the city?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing what the city of Providence has been doing, bringing people in, bringing conventions into town, where it does bring Providence and for the Federal Hill neighborhood to a whole different audience. And,
Right.
the feedback is tremendous. We just had that Frozen Four NCAA
Yeah.
tournament in town
Yeah.
last year, the men's basketball tournament, and the feedback we get from those people who travel to these tournaments every year love coming to Providence.
Yeah, they wanna come back.
And they want to come back, and they
Yeah.
hope those tournaments come back to Providence. They love the dining experience, and
Yeah. So Cassarinos has 3 floors.
Yes.
Right? So to me, it's almost like a new experience on each floor as far as where you're sitting. And it's literally, I mean, you're the only person that has dining on 3 floors. I mean, there's a
Yes.
couple other restaurants, maybe 1 or 2, that have a 2nd floor, right?
right, correct.
So, I mean, if you go into Cassarinos, you've got this opportunity to sit on 3 different floors, and if you get up there, all of a sudden you feel like you're looking out and experiencing different parts of Federal Hill, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I'd like. I actually love to sit on the 3rd floor. When I'm not at the bar, I'll sit on the 3rd floor. So that's what I like to do. I like to, because then I can people watch from down below and look out. So that's my thing. So from your perspective, being a chef and owner, before we close it out, so I got a couple last quick questions
Sure.
for you. But One is, and this is a question everybody always wants me to ask the chefs that are there, and managers as well. But is there dishes that you prefer, dishes that are your favorite that stick out? I know. See, it's a tough question.
That's
I know.
always the most difficult question that's asked of me,
Right.
even by my guests. But for me, something like this in Ossobuco, we have a classic veal brujol on our menu. I like things that take time for us to prepare.
Right.
I like from the time it goes to cutting up the vegetables to preparing the risotto. A lot of time and effort goes into this, and I enjoy submersing myself into making these dishes where it takes time. On the plate it may look simple and it's a sauce, but there's a lot that goes into it.
And I agree with you. It's kind of rewarding from that aspect.
We make, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
absolutely.
but we do a lot of stuff in house. We make our own sausages, which is really fun. Melvin, who's been with me for a very long time, he's my baker, so he's baking desserts from scratch. He makes all the sausages from scratch.
Really?
So there's, we pride ourselves on a lot of things really from scratch.
Now, see, that's something I wouldn't have known, but that's an excellent thing to know because, again, that goes back to the tradition of what you can create from that experience for your guests that are coming in. You mentioned the veal brujol. Can you tell me a little about that?
So veal brujol, we take veal and it's pounded out paper thin. We take some of the house-made sausage that we make, roll it, wrap it in the netting, and it just simmers in the marinara. Another great popular dish. That's, again, one of my favorites. Takes time, kind of reminds me of childhood.
Yeah, I can see
It's that real Italian
Right.
comfort food.
Exactly. So you've got Cassarinos. I mean, you guys are busy all the time. I know Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. I've been in there, and the restaurant's really full. Is there something? I know you guys got Mother's Day coming up, right?
We got Mother's Day coming up. We have recently opened on Sundays for as long as we had been there. We've been closed on Sunday, so we've been open Sundays now.
A couple of weeks, right? Or-
Yeah, so Sundays, typically we do a short day. It's 4 to 8.
Okay.
A quick day.
That's a
but-
nice short day. For
It's
the
a nice-
restaurant
for the
business,
restaurant
it's a
business,
very short
but
day.
for Mother's Day, we do extended hours. We'll be opening at 1 o'clock. And yeah, as Rick said, we have 3 levels of dining, so we certainly have space for private events to be held, corporate events, bridal showers, baby showers.
And as you mentioned earlier, there's the valet parking, which is a big benefit to Federal Hills, and
Yes.
most places have that. So there's another thing with the wines. You guys do a wine thing on Mondays, right?
We do half-price bottles of wine and champagne every Monday
Right.
from 11:30 till we close at 10 p.m. And it's anything off our list. And
Also for
there's
lunch and dinner.
lunch and dinner.
Ooh, I
And
didn't
there's
realize
some
that.
great selections on our list.
Yeah, you have a great one on this. I mean, the menu overall is great. The choices are endless for you on the menu. But so if you're a wino like me, now you know you can go there for lunch and dinner and get half off wine.
It is an absolutely great deal for people to take advantage maybe of those particular wines. Maybe they can't get all the time.
Absolutely.
It's a great deal.
Yep, that's why I'm willing to. Well, Steve, I really appreciate you coming in today, and I thank you for sharing this dish. I'm sure that some of us will be devouring this in a
Yeah,
little bit.
very good,
more.
Rick.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you
I really
for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Tell Tyler I appreciate him drawing the short end of the stick. Tyler, I know you're back there, I think, working on some things in the restaurant. Thanks for lending Steve to us. Good to see you, my
Thank you.
friend. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to have you bring that out there so I can try that afterwards. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And drink some of your wine on the way out, too.